It's the weirdest thing. And I mean, it's gotten to the point it affects his everyday functioning. It's stopped being quirky and become like a debilitating mental health issue, you know? My friend Tim lets it drop in conversation one day that he thinks he's got a stalker. And of course, I'm like, what? Stalker? And he's like, yeah, there's this figure I keep seeing, like kind of far away and like out of the corner of my eye usually. Followed me here. He's deaf, by the way, so he's signing this to me. That's why I typed it out as figure. In sign language, you don't really have pronouns. He uses the sign that means someone or something and uses two fingers to indicate the someone's eyes staring and staring at him from a distance. We're in a coffee shop. I ask him to point out the figure. He goes outside and looks around and points to the intersection a block down. It being the city during the morning rush, there are people walking around all over. And I'm like, the lady in the red hat, the dude in the Packers jacket. He keeps shaking his head, no, but he's got his eye on something or someone. He tells me forget it and we go back inside. And he doesn't mention it again. And when I ask at the end of our meetup if I should be concerned, he waves me off and says, all casual, no, it's good. Like he's embarrassed he brought it up. But then a few days later, he vid calls me asking to meet up again, like right now. Can I meet him for dinner? And I've already got plans, but he looks so strung out, so I say sure. We meet at a small diner. He's barely sat down at the table across from me when he says, signing very low so no one can see, even though chances of the babbling people around us knowing sign language are pretty darn low. Look, see the woman outside the window. I look, searching the street outside. There's only the ordinary pedestrian traffic of the late afternoon. I look back at Tim and shrug. His eyes dart to the window and he describes the woman he sees. Brunette, 30s or 40s, gray sweatshirt and pants. Oh, I look again. Well, there's a woman, curly brown hair with her kid. No. He shakes his head, sighs, and runs his fingers through his hair, and then turns and stares. Keep staring. I lean over to follow his gaze to the window. There's no one there. Hey, I sign. Are you sure you're feeling okay? I've been seeing her every day for 2 weeks, he interrupts, signing quickly now. She started far away, but each day she's gotten closer. He moves his hands closer and closer together and adds, I'm worried what happens when his hands touch. Who is she? Have you tried approaching her? Is she like someone you know? All I can think is it must be a relative. Like, maybe he's hallucinating someone important to him. Tim has a history of depression, has struggled with some form of mental illness throughout most of his life, and spent most of his youth navigating stuff alone or holding it in because his family is hearing and never bothered to learn sign language. It strikes me to wonder if the woman has ever signed to him, but when I asked if she's hearing or deaf, he shakes his head. I don't know, and tells me he's never met her. Well, not really. But he knows who she is. I snort. It seems like he's being purposefully obscure. He claims he knows her, but has never met her. I ask him again who she is. He gets more agitated, rubbing his arms and looking over his shoulder. Oh, he says, she's moved. Where? I ask. Door. There is no one at the door. Clearly no one. But he keeps sneaking glances. Looks at me and smiles and gives me that two-fingered motion again of eyes staring and staring, watching him. I ask him if he wants to leave. He says no. She'll just show up wherever he goes. I push my chair out and go to the door. He's watching me with a strange mixture of horror and fascination. I push open the door and step outside and come back in and sit back down with him. I reiterate to him that there's no one there. He rubs his palms in his eyes and finally says, okay. I ask him again how he knows her. This past summer, Tim tells me he and his friends went camping. One of them knew of a hiking trail with some scenic views, remote enough to be less traveled than the most famous peaks. There's a cabin along the trail, rustic but well built, a log cabin like in a picture on a postcard. The outhouse has a little window in the door and similar log construction. Everyone goes into the cabin, but Tim comes back out to use the outhouse. The stench is bad even from a distance. Tim holds his breath, wondering if he shouldn't just go in the woods instead. But he braves the reek and opens the door, and a cloud of flies bursts out, swirling around him in a storm of black wings. And at that moment, the stench hits him like a wave, making his eyes water and his stomach buck as he stumbles away from the outhouse and hurls. When he looks inside, there's a woman sitting on the toilet bench. She's kind of curled in the corner, gray sweatshirt, gray sweatpants, brown hair draping down around her. What little he can see of her face, her skin, is bloated and splotchy. He gets only a glimpse, and then he rushes to the cabin screaming, bursts in, hands flying, call police, now, now, woman dead, bathroom, call police, now, now, now. And his friends look up from poring over a backpack they found, with wallet and phone and uneaten moldy lunch, and it all so clearly belongs to the corpse in the outhouse. And it's definitely the same woman? I ask him. He nods. The police came and took away her body, he says. They found no evidence of foul play, and he and his friends were allowed to leave after questioning. He shows me her obituary. She was apparently cremated, and her funeral was a few weeks ago. But it is definitely her, he says. Okay, I think for a minute. Well, you had a really traumatic incident. I mean, that had to be traumatic, finding a dead body. So, maybe what you're seeing is because of, flashbacks from the trauma? You haven't asked me how she died. Oh, how did she die? He tells me she died of dehydration when after a few days, the heat and lack of water killed her. But she could have come out at any time. There was nothing stopping her. No lock on the door, no marks or signs of violence, no animal tracks outside, nothing. Why would she choose to stay and die? Why? He's obviously been torturing himself over this question. Strange, I agree. But I'm much more concerned for Tim's mental health. Tim's obsession with her. His trauma from finding her after her death has done a number on his already delicate mental state. Do you think your obsession with figuring out why she died might be fueling these visions? I ask him. I mean, regardless if you're seeing her because of trauma or because of some hallucination, it's not like you can change what happened. I think you should see a psychiatrist. See if you can get some meds to kill the hallucination. He chuckles humorlessly. Kill a hallucination who's already dead. But he agrees to see a psychiatrist. He seems to be feeling a little restored when we get up to leave. At the door, though, he pauses, his face twisting in anxiety. He waits, letting me go first to open it, and motions me to hold it wide for him. Only then does he step through. 3 days later, I get another message from Tim. He's stuck and begs me to come to his place. When I arrive, his door is ajar, but it feels rude to walk in, so I press the doorbell and watch the lights flash. My phone buzzes. Come on in. Tim greets me the moment I step inside, like he was right there waiting. He's got his bag in hand and tells me he's late, and he's going to be in so much trouble at work. Would I please come with him downstairs? He'll explain later. He ushers me down the staircase and at the front door of the building draws up sharp so that I almost bang into him, and he motions me to get the door even though it's partly open and he could easily just push it. I fling it wide and he dashes out signing, "Thank you, sorry, I'll explain after work." That evening, he asked me to let him back into his building, and after I let him in, the door's not even locked, the building front door is ajar. He leads me up to his unit and inspects the door. It's closed. His posture visibly relaxes as he unlocks it and invites me in for a beer. Then he admits to me sheepishly that he's had a rough few days, actually called in sick a couple times because now she is always at the door. Who? I ask, and then at his whitening look. Oh. But we just came through the door. Yeah, open doors are fine, closed doors are fine, but she... Didn't you notice the building door was ajar? He shows the partially open door with his hands, a slight gap between them, and then grips one hand and represents the door with the other. Her fingers were holding it open. I don't know how to say this. It seems a whole new level of delusional. Tim hands me a beer from the fridge, explaining that she is always at the door now, but he only sees her fingers and sometimes her eyes. So what happens if you open the door? I wonder. He takes a swig of his beer morosely, and then his gaze goes distant. He's focused on something behind me. I turn around. The bedroom door is ajar. I swing back to look at him. Is she there? The bedroom? You see fingers? His eyes meet mine. His face is flat. Deaf people are usually very expressive. Half the grammar is on the face, not the hands, but lately, he's been almost a robot. And then finally, he makes that gesture. 2 fingers, pointing at himself, staring and staring. And then he signs FML. I stand, go to the ajar door. Tim pales, eyes rounding, but says nothing. Just takes another sip of his beer and watches me. I push the door, reach up, run my hand down the length of the ajar edge, push it open further, swing it back and forth, look at him and raise my eyebrows like, see? It's nothing. Nothing's there. He grunts and his eyelids flutter. I don't think he's been sleeping enough. Hey, do you need someone to stay with you? Nah, he waves me off. Go home. So I do. But here's why I'm writing the post. He hasn't gotten better. He keeps asking me to help him when he gets stuck. Once it was at his workplace, other times at his apartment. Last time I was there, I noticed he took off all the doors except the front door to his unit. It's gotten to be utterly debilitating to his life. And the last time I saw him, he kept ranting at me about her, about how it didn't save her. And I didn't understand what he meant. Obviously, no one saved her. She was dead when he found her. No, he burst at me. You don't understand everything she suffered through, and it didn't save her. I can tell he's falling into depression. I'm worried he's going to quit his job and just stop leaving his apartment and never come out. How do I help my friend? Update. I never actually posted what I wrote above, because I felt like maybe I shouldn't bear Tim's troubles to the world, like it's not my story. But I'm sharing it now because he called me this afternoon furious. He followed my advice, and the psychiatrist told him to put the doors back on, and if he saw the fingers again, to close his eyes and open the door. That it's a compulsion he needs to gain power over. So he followed the instructions, put all the doors back up in place. Now, he told me he's screwed. He got stuck in his closet. Look, I'll head over and then we'll open the door together, all right? I'll hold your hand while you push. I might have said this a bit too sarcastically, but then while I was heading over, I remembered his last rant to me about her. About how everything she suffered didn't save her. Of course, at the time I thought, duh, you found her rotting. Obviously, she wasn't saved. But while I was busing to his place, it finally struck me what he really meant. See, the fact he found her body in the corner meant she never opened the door. She chose to die rather than going near that door. But it still got her. And maybe that means there's no way for Tim to escape either. As this revelation hits, a sudden icy panic grips me because I'm the one who told him to go see the doctor, and it was all in his head, and to just buck up and open the door. My heart hammers 1,000 beats a minute like a hummingbird. As I try to vid call him, it rings and rings. And finally, the agonizing bus ride ends, and I'm leaping off the bus and rushing into his building and taking the steps 2 at a time. I let myself into his place out of breath, fling open the closet door. Nothing but clothes on hangers, shoe boxes, plastic storage bins, and blankets. Retreat back out to the bedroom, bathroom, living room, stomp again, so hard and loud the downstairs neighbors are sure to complain. No response. Call his phone, call and call. Finally, see its light flashing from the closet floor behind the door. As I lean down to pick it up, when I straighten, I notice that the door, it is swung closed behind me and is now just barely ajar. And there, wrapped around the edges of the closet door, are Tim's fingers. At first, I think it's a prank. Ha ha, I sign sarcastically, even though he can't see me. And I reach for the door and stop. I'm not sure why I stop. Some instinct. I wait for him to open it, and it's been over an hour. I'm still waiting. I think I'm gonna need some help getting out, but then once I do, what do I do next? How do I make sure that oh gosh, Tim his hand is still curled around the door, and his index finger just uncurled and curled again, beckoning me closer. Please help me. What should I do? Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for listening to this narration. I just wanted to give a quick thank you to all of my patrons who are subscribed over at my Patreon. We have a great big thank you from me to you, Alonzo, Kozak, Icy Narrates, Jesse Hartley, Andreas Anderson London, and Geek Sanctuary. Thank you guys so much for supporting me. If you would like to support too, just check out the links in my description. And thank you again for listening. I hope to see you all in the next video. Bye-bye.